The avenger of Lincoln's assassin turns out to be the highest profiled Canadian that was ever involved in the American Civil War. Edward Paul Doherty was born on September 26, 1838 in Wickham, Canada, present-day Quebec, to Joseph and Mary Doherty, who were Irish immigrants. He attended school in Montreal and graduated from St. Hyacinthe College in 1857. He then began to study law with a Canadian firm before he moved to Boston in 1859. At the outbreak of the Civil War, Doherty enlisted as a private in Company A, 71st New York Militia. His regiment saw action in the First Battle of Bull Run in Burnside's brigade near Manassas, Virginia. He was captured by the Confederates and was held prisoner for 2 months before he made a daring escape. 2 years later, on September 12, 1863, he joined the 16th New York Cavalry and was assigned to protect Washington, D.C. He distinguished himself as a cavalry officer and later became first lieutenant.
Again, I say, with malice toward none, with charity for all, with firmness in the right as God gives us to see the right, we shall bind up the nation's wounds and cherish peace. That government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. Thank you. God bless you all.
On April 14, 1865, Abraham Lincoln, the 16th President of the United States, was shot in the head by John Wilkes Booth at Ford's Theater in Washington, D.C. The President succumbed to his injuries and died the following day at 7:22 a.m. 10 days later, on April 24, Doherty was ordered to report with a detail of 25 enlisted men to the Washington offices of Colonel Lafayette C. Baker, Union Intelligence. I reported to Colonel Baker at the time and place specified and received the following information and instructions. He informed me that he had reliable information that the assassin Booth and his accomplice were somewhere between the Potomac and Rappahannock rivers He gave me several photographs of Booth and introduced me to Detectives Conger and Baker. He said they would accompany me. 2 days later, Doherty and 24 members of the 16th New York Cavalry finally traced the fugitives, Booth and David Harold, to a barn on the property of Richard H. Garrett in King George County, Virginia. Booth and Harold were sleeping at Garrett's farm on April 26 when Doherty and soldiers from the 16th New York Cavalry arrived and surrounded the barn. Captain Doherty called upon Booth to surrender. Booth replied that he would not surrender, but that his companion would. Harold was told to come to the door and put his hands out. He complied and was arrested. Booth cried out, "I will not be taken alive." The soldiers then set fire to the barn. Booth scrambled for the back door, armed with a rifle and pistol. Captain Doherty sprang towards the barn, and as he did so, Booth raised a gun, and it was then that Sergeant Boston Corbett shot Booth. Booth, all this time, was very defiant and refused to surrender. Booth, up until this time, had denied that there was anyone in the barn beside himself. Considerable conversation now took place between myself, Booth, and the detectives. We threatened to burn the barn if he did not surrender. Finally, Booth said, "Oh, Captain, there is a man here who wants to surrender awful bad." I ordered Garrett, the younger son, who had the key, to unlock the barn, which he did. I partially opened the door and told Harold to put out his hand, which he did. I told him to put out his other hand. I took hold of both his wrists and pulled him out of the barn. Almost simultaneous with my taking Harold out, the hay in the rear was ignited. Sergeant Corbett shot the assassin Booth, wounding him in the neck. I entered the barn as soon as the shot was fired, dragging Harold with me, and found that Booth had fallen on his back. The assassin Booth lived for about 2 hours. Doherty and his men took their prisoner, David Harold, as well as Booth's corpse, back to Washington. For his service, First Lieutenant Edward P Doherty received a promotion to captain, as well as $5,250. He remained in the Army until December 27, 1870. In 1871, he went into business in New Orleans and also married his wife, Catherine. He returned to New York in 1886. Doherty succumbed to heart disease and died in his home on April 5, 1897. Captain Edward P Doherty was buried in Section 1 of Arlington National Cemetery. His tombstone reads, "Commanded detachment of 16th New York Cavalry, which captured President Lincoln's assassin, April 26, 1865. I invite you to join me as we learn about more fearless and heroic Canadians who fought in a conflict that is called the American Civil War.